Remember when you were a youngster? Once a year or so, your parents would wake you early of a morning. Everyone would pile into the family car and head for the beach. Towards some place with an exotic name, Garibaldi or Gearhart, Seaside or Rockaway, Manzanita, Florence, or Bandon. The drive to the beach was the longest drive of your life. As soon as you got out of town, you could smell the ocean, hear the waves, or thought you could on that journey of journeys. We are heading to the beach once again, this time by helicopter. Another chapter in Seeing Oregon by Air. In the valleys of the Coast Range, there is fog. Some people say there always is fog of a morning in the Coast Range. That isn't 100% true, but it seems that way to a lot of people. Pilot Warren Petrie.
You come out on the coast this time of year, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature because it's so unpredictable. You get used to the summer months being fairly flyable every day, and you get a little bit out of the mindset of having to think about the weather till you get back into the fall conditions, especially working the coast, and then it comes up in the front of your mind again that you've got to really start watching it.
Even English explorer Sir Francis Drake talked about the weather when he passed this way in 1579. He complained of a vile, stinking fog. A lot of travelers since then have expressed similar feelings. There is our destination. Some people say it's lined with tourists. We don't worry about that, not up here. The question for us is where to begin. Every journey has a beginning and an end. If you're traveling the entire distance of the Oregon coast, one of those two spots has to be here in Astoria. If you need a landmark for a memorable spot, well, try the Astoria column. Logic dictates, however, in Astoria, the start or finish be at the bridge to the state of Washington. We choose to end our journey at the bridge. So it begins far to the south. Down along what local promoters call the Siskiyou Coast. This too is part of Oregon. A 10-foot-tall plastic chicken used to welcome people to Oregon from California. The chicken is gone. But the communities of Harbor and Brookings are still here. So are all the rock formations for which the South Coast is famous. No need for binoculars. No wondering what is on the backside of the arches and monoliths. Ahead of us, 300 plus miles of the Oregon coast. We are heading north. That's Highway 101 over there, the Coast Highway. The highway of tourists and artists. Manuel Lopez lives not far off Highway 101. Some of his work reflects the sea.
I've seen this guy about 3 years ago, and I was telling people about it, and so I had to carve it out so they would believe it. You recognize it as a walrus, don't you? And this is what it consists of, just a lot of hours of...
Inspiration not difficult to find. Visit the beach, watch nature. Everyone does. Highway 101 isn't always in sight of the beach. Every evening when the sun is low in the sky, people on land watch the sea change color. People at sea watch the land change color. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. So it is written in 1 Ecclesiastes. Gold Beach, where miners combed the sands for wealth in the 1850s, a city grew. This is the mouth of the Rogue River. Here pelicans dive, feed, ride the river. Upstream, tourists ride the river, a day's adventure in a jet boat, 70, 80, 103 miles. Or float a few days in a kayak or raft. The Rogue River is a destination all its own. North from Gold Beach, the rock formations continue. The headlands march to the sea. Port Orford, where commercial fishing boats don't dock the usual way. They are lifted out of the water, spend the night on top of the dock. In 1851, 9 settlers were put ashore to start a community. People who had been here for generations didn't like it. The settlers ended up on that outcropping now known as Battle Rock. The 9 managed to sneak away to safety. Cape Blanco, the farthest west a person can go in Oregon and still be on land. The lighthouse is the oldest original lighthouse tower along the Oregon coast. First lighted December 20th, 1870. Not everyone wanted to work here, but some did. James Langlois started work in 1875 and retired in 1918. 35 of those 43 years, he was the principal lightkeeper. Lighthouses are automated, but the romance of a light on a shore is as strong as ever. we go to the beach for scenery. The view at Bandon here. We want places we don't see out our own front window or our back window either. I wonder if the people who live along the coast go to the city for their vacations, to check out the view there. That's the Coquille River Light, 1896. And that's part of the economy down there. Cranberry bogs at harvest time. In 1936, Bandon burned. It happened one September day. But on a trip to the coast, we don't think about burning towns or mansions. The Simpson Mansion at Shore Acres, south of Charleston, used to be there. It burned in the 20s. The property was given to the state for a park. The tennis court is being nibbled away by the ocean. Some days nibbling may be the wrong word. Shore Acres is one of the best places to watch storms. A calmer spot is Sunset Bay. That's it up ahead. Children daydream about pirates rowing ashore here, bringing treasure to bury. Probably never happened. But Sir Francis Drake supposedly anchored a few miles south of here in 1579, stayed 5 days. Up ahead there, lighthouse number 3, heading north, Cape Arago. Not one for visiting now, just looking. This Cape Arago lighthouse is the third to be built on the little island. The first was in 1866, the latest in 1934. Of course, the 30s was the decade of a few other memorable structures being built along the coast. A lot of the bridges. The McCullough Bridge over Coos Bay is one of the largest. Underneath, it has the arches of a cathedral. A lot farther south is the Thomas Creek Bridge. That's the highest in the state at 345 feet, but it wasn't built until the 60s. The bridges we remember best and connect with the coast are the ones such as Gold Beach across the Rogue River. A bridge with dignity and style and grace. A bridge which glows in late afternoon. A bridge to frame a sunset. North of Coos Bay, 10-mile lake stretches on and on. Don't ask how far. What doesn't change here is the way mail is delivered. No one worried about roads around the lake years ago. Water was the easiest way to commute and to deliver mail. For Bob Edwards, it still is.
We're basic hermits, I think, and we like living boat access only. That way, the only company we get are people that we're going to go get or that we already know from our own community here. You don't get all the drop-ins if you've got a road that comes to your place on the lake. You have so many friends and relatives in the summertime you never knew you had.
North to Winchester Bay and the Umpqua River Lighthouse. This one goes back to 1894. There had been an earlier light, that one down by the river. It lasted from 1857 until 1863. The river washed away the foundation. The tower fell. 30 years later, a new lighthouse was built on a ridge. For more than 50 miles along the coast from Coos Bay to Florence stretches the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area. Think of dunes, we think of dry places. There is a lot of water among the dunes. Think of dunes, think of dune buggies. People in machines romping over the countryside. There is that in the dunes, but there is quiet too. Dune watchers prefer early morning and late afternoon, prefer the sun low in the sky, the shadows on the march. Pilot Warren Petrie.
You get that light and the stark contrast of the white sand and the shadows. And the shadows really neat because it picks up all the patterns that the wind has created that you don't see in the midday light.
There may not be a more photographed spot on the Oregon coast than the Heceta Head Lighthouse. It's named for a Spanish explorer, Don Bruno de Heceta. Before workers built the lighthouse, they had to build a road 12 miles from Florence. Then they used 1,000 barrels of blasting powder to level places for the lighthouse and the support buildings. By 1884, all was ready and the lamp was lit. The light could be seen 21 miles to sea. There always has been a lot of maintenance work at lighthouses. It still goes on. Probably always will. Captain Cook came this way in 1778. On the 7th day of March, he saw a part of Oregon and gave it a name. There were plenty of people living here. The hillside no doubt had a name from one of the local tribes, but Captain Cook had the English Navy on his side, and since that empire's navy made maps and the local tribes did not, the name Cape Perpetua stuck. Some historians claim the name refers to the nasty weather he ran into, but Cook's journal indicates the name refers to a martyr, Saint Perpetua, a lady of Carthage. It was on her name's day he saw the Cape. During World War II, lookouts kept watch high on Cape Perpetua, waiting for an enemy to appear on the horizon. There's Yachats, a busy town in summer. Not so busy in winter, but a good place to watch storms. And seagulls. A ways to the north, Alsea Bay, the community of Waldport. People come to feel a part of the coast. I'm not certain this is what they wanted. Part of the family chores is digging the house out of the hill a couple of times a year. It also is a custom along the coast to give houses names. But I don't think everyone agrees with the custom. In a word association game, say Newport. Someone will say whale. That's Keiko, celebrity whale. That's the ocean. People right now like to argue if the two will ever meet. Newport also is the only community along Oregon's coast with 2 lighthouses. That's the original, the 1871 Yaquina Bay Lighthouse. 3 years it was a lighthouse, that's all. Its fame is the result of a short story in a magazine about a girl disappearing inside the abandoned lighthouse and forever haunting it. North on Yaquina Head, the other Newport lighthouse. The one started as soon as the Bay Lighthouse was finished. It's 93 feet tall, 114 steps, and the keeper's house is gone. The light now is located in what the Bureau of Land Management calls its Yaquina Head Outstanding Natural Area. This is where people come to look at tide pools, understand the relationship between sea and shore. Others come to Yaquina Head to learn about the relationship between sea and sky. Between warm air currents and cold air currents. People who play with the idea what comes down can go up and stay up. "330 miles of rocks and shore. 330 miles of cliffs and caves. For a few moments every cloud-free evening, the setting sun brightens the rocks. Even the Devil's Punch Bowl catches fire. Depot Bay. Small port. Big spouts.
In Missouri, you chase tornadoes. Here, I guess you watch the ocean come up through the rocks.
We'll take the waves. Along the coast, there are a lot of state parks and state waysides. I counted 71, probably missed a few. But if that number is correct, that would be one every 4.5 miles, or thereabouts. Cities along the coast come at a less frequent pace. We remember them for different reasons: outlet stores and gambling casinos. Friends' beach houses we borrow, or for a favorite fishing spot. Cape Kiwanda north of Lincoln City, south of Tillamook. It's along the Three Capes Loop, home of dory fishermen and hang gliders, and people who enjoy the view. Another cape, another lighthouse. Cape Meares, the short lighthouse. The 200-foot cliff is the tower. Ready for use New Year's Day 1890. The coast we reach in hours was more distant then. It took 3 days for an assistant keeper to reach the lighthouse from Portland. a steamer to Astoria, a schooner to Tillamook Bay, horse and oxen to Cape Meares. Of course, that was 100 years ago. Tillamook, famous for cheese. That's the cheese factory. And there's the blimp hangar. The Navy flew blimps on coastal patrol in World War II. There used to be 2 hangars, but one of them burned. The remaining one serves as an air museum. You can't miss it from up here. You also can't miss the fishermen gathering along the Wilson River. Notice they arrive by pickup truck and sports utility vehicle and tractor. A long time ago, it looked as if another town would rival Tillamook. On a strip of sand between the bay and ocean, a promoter built his dream, a city to rival the vacation communities of the East. Bay Ocean had paved streets, a natatorium with a piano in the rafters. It was a success story, which disappeared when the ocean swallowed the land upon which the town was built. That's Garibaldi, with the smokestack a reminder of a mill which used to be. At Nehalem Bay, there are stories of buried treasure. Through the years, chunks of beeswax have been found. Estimates of as much as 10 tons of beeswax, possibly cargo on a Spanish ship of long ago. No doubloons, no pieces of 8, but stories of ships briefly stopping, stories of shipwreck survivors. All that keeps alive the dream of treasure somewhere around Neocony Mountain. Now, there is a landmark. That's Hug Point. The beach served as highway during the early days. Freight wagons, delivery schedules changed with the tide. So they created a road at Hug Point, a road in the rock to stay dry. That's Cannon Beach ahead. When the USS Shark wrecked on Clatsop Spit in 1846, part of it came ashore here, a piece of decking with a cannon attached. As for Haystack Rock, it doesn't loom as large when you're looking down on it. Around Tillamook Head appears the town of Seaside, where 6 generations of Portlanders have vacationed. And dreamed of visiting the Tillamook Rock Lighthouse. In 1880, crews blasted tons of rock from the top to level a place for the lighthouse. Bad weather kept keeper William Dahlgren on the rock for 11 months, 1 year. 1957, the light was replaced with a buoy. Now the building holds urns of ashes, a final resting spot above the sea. At the north end of the Oregon coast, a river and a fort. The river was here first. Fort Stevens came during the Civil War. Later years, there were military It was still a fort during World War II.
This was a 60-degree range fire gun.
The guns only fired in practice. Fort Stevens is a state park now. The guns, the soldiers, gone. The curious come to see what is left. Not far away, a different kind of fort. Down there in the trees, a National Park Service reconstruction of Fort Clatsop, where Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery spent the winter of 1805-1806. A soggy winter. A few years later, there was a town nearby, Astoria, America's answer to the Hudson's Bay Company. Later, Scandinavians came to fish and log. On a hill above the town, cable television came to life through the first community antenna system. Progress at the north end of the Oregon coast. 300+ miles of coastline, 300 miles of Oregon meeting an ocean.